بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين وبعد. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه العزيز وفرقانه الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Honorable brethren, respected sister in Islam, whenever we come to Jumu'ah, whenever we hear a spiritual discourse somewhere else, whenever we hear talks about Allah, whenever we hear talks about religion in general, if we're actually listening, if we're actually trying to internalize, if we're actually trying to benefit from them, we do. But why is there not a revolutionary change manifesting itself? Why are we not changing in general as people, as human beings? What's the problem? What's the contention? There's so many lectures being given, there's so many discourses taking place, there's so many programs that masjids are doing, scholars are doing, da'is are doing, preachers in general, no matter what caliber thereof, are doing and trying. Why is there no change coming about in our personalities? I mean, we talked about communal change from various angles, on many instances in the khutbahs before. But in terms of our individual personas, like why is it that I'm still the same person that I am today, maybe a little worse than I was yesterday? Why am I not constantly thriving, spiritually speaking? Thriving spiritually, what's the issue? Because a lot of times when we hear these khutbahs, when we hear the verses of the Quran being recited, with the meaning or without, whenever we feel spiritually uplifted, then we're galvanized for that moment. They leave us spiritually invigorated for the moment. And that's the problem. It's for the moment. And why is it for the moment? Is it our fault? Is it the speaker's fault because you didn't do a good job of hyping it up or motivating you and making the message more evident and clear? Not necessarily. The problem is because ourselves, when we actually try and we try to look for a way to figure out how to implement what we learn, ourself, our inner self, our nafs thrusts ambiguity at us. And it tells us, you know what, there's so much that you need to do, and you don't know where to start from, so let's just either not do it or procrastinate till tomorrow, till we figure it out. And sometimes we hear so many stories about, how the Prophet ﷺ struggled, how the Sahaba struggled, how the people of the past who were pious struggled for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the cause of His religion. And when we hear about how they struggled, we're like, hey, that's too much struggle. I don't think I can manage. I think that's too much for me. I think there is no point in even beginning anywhere because I just don't think I can do it. And when this ambiguity swirls around our head and we don't know where to start from, then we just end up giving up. We end up giving up until the next khutbah. The next khutbah comes along, we feel fascinated again, we feel spiritually uplifted again, and subhanAllah, the desire comes up again, but then the moment reality hits and life hits, we're like, this is too much. The fix to this problem lies in us identifying who we are as people, what works for us, knowing our own personalities, becoming a master of ourselves, of how we function. And how do we do that? By starting off by not playing with ourselves, by not joking with ourselves. When we set goals for ourselves, set realistic goals. When we look for things to follow, look for realistic things to follow and then follow them. And when we make tawbah to Allah from certain things, make real tawbah. Real tawbah meaning, I will never do this again. A lot of times when we make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our dua is, oh Allah, I won't do this again, it's filled with so many clauses Like we're writing a contract or something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is my tawbah, but then we word it in such a way where there's so many loopholes. Where so many loopholes that, I'm probably going to end up doing again, but you know what, you're forgiven, so go ahead and forgive me for this time, and then inshallah, the next time comes, then I'll ask for forgiveness again. And, subconsciously, even if we don't say these things, subconsciously that's what's in the back of our mind. Right? When we even make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anytime we're trying to transform any aspect of our life, there's always something that is kind of holding us back, that we use to hold us back. And that is our fear of changing. That is our fear of stepping out of our complacency, that we don't think we want to change. We're happy with the way life is going right now. It's very silky smooth. Let it be like that. When we have to understand that once we identify our personality and what works with us, that's the first step. That's the first step in actually making about change. Like there's actually a statement which is very apt in its connotation, which goes, "Man arafa nafsa arafa rabbah." That individual who identifies themselves has identified Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, know what works with you. Know how you get motivated to do something. Try to figure out what things make me actually do stuff and what things hold me back. And once you know how you work, then inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will aid you. He will literally hold your hand and metaphorically speaking, hold your hand and walk you to Jannah. And literally treat you like a servant who is actually sincerely looking for guidance. And once you become that, then you're just like the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. The Sahaba radiallahu anhu, if you look for precedent, right, in terms of following one of them or a few of them, you will find all kinds of personalities. All kinds of personalities. They weren't only one kind of personality where it was always Jahannam, 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 or harshness, harshness, harshness. You will find those who are a little bit softer, Jannah, Jannah, Jannah. But then you will find those of them who are, sometimes Jannah, sometimes Jannah. You will find all kinds of personalities. If you're a poor person, you'll find poor Sahaba that you can follow. If you're a wealthy individual, you'll find precedent for that too. You'll find wealthy Sahaba. If you're a very strong personality, you'll find people like Umar bin Khattab. If you're a very soft personality, you'll find people like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Whatever personality you are, if you look for precedent in their life, you will find it. Which is why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلًا. For those who struggle in our path, we will guide them in our way for us. Those who struggle for us. Meaning those who are sincerely looking for guidance, we will guide them to our paths. Generally speaking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only talks about one path when He talks about His path. Like for example, the path of shaitan, Allah always says multiple, because shaitan will always look for different avenues to mess your life up, to really just cause you doom and destruction. Shaitan will come at you from various angles, from various dimensions, and shaitan will always keep coming, which is why subul is shaitan. It's always the pathways of shaitan, but it's always ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Allah guide us to the straight path. Sabilillah, the way of Allah. But over here, there's only one context in where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there are multiple paths of getting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And that is those who struggle, Allah will give them a different journey. Every person has a life story of their own. Everybody has a journey of their own. Everybody can find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on account of how they work. Everybody has a different story of how they found Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, it was very simple. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all he had to do was tell him, and he's like, okay. Even when people objected, the people sitting around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came back from Isra and Mi'raj, and he was telling them of all the miraculous events that had transpired, everybody, some of them shook their head, some of them were astonished, so they started clapping sarcastically, some of them were just like, oh my God, like this person lost his mind. Some of them were like, okay, Abu Bakr is passing by right now, let's ask him. Even his own friend will say, this guy he's not in his right senses right now. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu passed by, And they asked him, you know, a person is telling you that they went up to the sky on this magical animal, and they went up and they went to heaven, they went to hell, they spoke to God, and they did all of these things, and their bed is still warm when they came back. Meaning, like, they didn't even spend that much time up there, and they accomplished so many feats. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his answer right away was, it depends on who said it. When he said that, okay, yeah, of course, it's your friend, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he was told, he accepted right away. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, it wasn't that simple, right? And that's kind of what I want to focus on, because that man's change was drastic. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was always a noble person. But Umar radiallahu anhu went from, you know, being one of the harshest and staunchest enemies of Islam to being one of the biggest reasons or causes through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spread Islam. Right? And Umar radiallahu anhu's drastic change is something that we can all benefit from, because some of us probably don't even have to make drastic adjustments. Some of us probably just need to fix up a few things here and there, and inshallah our life will be very, very smooth, religiously speaking. We don't need to alter that much. But because we're already Muslim to begin with, we already have the first part of it. Umar radiallahu anhu's drastic change was being one of the staunchest non-Muslims to being one of the best Muslims ever. To an extent where the Prophet ﷺ, every single time he would say something, I believe in this, and Abu Bakr and Umar believe in this. Right? The Prophet ﷺ mentions so many feats about Umar bin Khattab. He says if there was a prophet after me, it would be Umar bin Khattab. So this man's change was really, really drastic, and he went from being somebody who really wanted to, one time even assassinating the Prophet ﷺ, to becoming somebody who couldn't even stand not seeing the Prophet ﷺ, who couldn't even deal with the news of the Prophet ﷺ's demise. That's how much he loved him afterwards. So where did it all start from? How did it happen? His desire to change, his desire to look for the truth was sincere. That was his first step. It was sincere. It wasn't haphazard. It wasn't like, you know what, the truth, not really. If it goes along with my whims and fancies, I'll follow it. If not, then no. His desire to change was real. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him to the straight path. Or he really disbelieved in the message of the Prophet ﷺ. That's why he disbelieved. He didn't disbelieve in the message of the Prophet ﷺ because of stubbornness. He really believed idolatry was foolish even from the get-go. Right? Well, like one time when he was traveling and he forgot to take his idol, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, because they would travel with their idols. Whenever they wanted to pray, pull the idol out, put it right in front of them and pray. Umar radiallahu anhu one time forgot to bring his idol with him, and he wanted to pray during his journey. He's like, oh man, I forgot my God at home. So what can I do now? Umar radiallahu anhu said, all right, I've got some dates. So he took out the dates, kind of like made like Play-Doh out of the dates, and like made an idol for him to worship. And after he did that, then like he put it away and he realized, oh my God, I'm getting hungry, man. This is, all my food is here, my God is at home, but this is my God now, but I'm kind of hungry now. So Umar radiallahu anhu relating his own stories, like I ended up eating my God, right? So, and then later on when he was narrating the story, he was saying that I already started seeing how foolish this was. Because he was in pursuit of the truth. He was really in pursuit of the truth. Right? And that's why when sometimes he would pass by the Prophet ﷺ before Islam when he was reading the Quran, and he would be like, you know what, just like everybody else is saying, he's probably just a poet who has a very eloquent and sweet tongue. And then in the Prophet ﷺ, the next verse, because he was sincerely looking for the truth, was, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ. This is not the statement of a poet. Like we knew very little do you believe. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Then, just like everybody else is saying, it must be the saying of a fortune teller because this guy just thought this guy just recited or he spelled out my thoughts. So he's probably a fortune teller. He knows what's going on in my head. And then, very next ayah, because he was looking for the truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that it was, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Verily, this isn't the statement of a fortune teller. Very little do you take heed. تَنْزِيلٌ مِنَ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. This is nothing but revelation from the Lord of the worlds. When all of these seeds were being planted in his heart, because he was genuinely looking for the truth. Even when it came to, acceptance time, Umar radiallahu anhu had a very rough upbringing.
He's a child of Khattab. His father, as strict as we think Umar, his father was his father. You know what I'm saying? He was much more stricter. He was like that because of his father, Khattab. They were very rough upbringing, so he was used to getting it the rough way every single time. So, like with everybody else, the Prophet ﷺ was soft. He was very, lenient in his approach, smiled, spoke eloquently, compassionately. With Umar, even when he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ knew that inshallah he was going to accept Islam because he had made dua for him the previous night. But even then, the Prophet ﷺ didn't like, oh, Umar, you don't accept Islam, this is the right way. No, he grabbed him. He grabbed Umar bin Khattab like this. And he said, oh Umar, what are you waiting for? Accept Islam. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for Allah's punishment to come down on you? Oh Umar, and Umar is not a small man. The Prophet doing this, by the way, shows his own strength. Umar was such a large man that if he ever sat on a donkey or an animal, his feet would touch the ground. Really big guy, really strong, muscular guy, Umar bin Khattab. So that's how the Prophet talked to him. Right? Whenever Umar bin Khattab, even after he became Muslim, he was harsh on himself. He was harsh on himself because he knew that's what worked with him. Because he was genuinely trying to change. He knew that only if I get a clear-cut answer will I ever accept something. Which is why even when it came to the prohibition of alcohol, Umar kept going to the Prophet and telling the Prophet about, what is the ruling of Allah? Asking the Prophet what is the ruling of Allah pertaining to alcohol? When the Prophet would wait for revelation to come down, Umar would make a genuine dua to Allah. Allahumma bayyin lana fil khamri bayana shifa'in. Oh Allah, give us clear-cut recommendations, clear-cut rulings, legislations pertaining to wine, to alcohol. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed one verse. And then the Umar saw that people were still, kind of consuming, kind of partaking, enjoying themselves with alcohol, even though the prohibition was not clear-cut, but still there was repugnant vibes about it in verses. Then Umar said again, oh Allah, give us a clear-cut answer. If it was any of us, oh, let him say it's haram, it's fine. Let's just go ahead and drink sometimes. Umar was sincere. He knew that this is wrong, so he said, oh Allah, give us clear-cut instructions. I know this is wrong and I don't want to do it, but I'm going to end up doing it if it's not haram. So then he asked Allah, oh Allah, you know how a lot of us don't ask the questions you don't want to know the answers to? He didn't want to know the answer because he was involved in alcohol, but he was still so sincere that he was harsh enough to himself to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a clarification 3 times until finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. Oh, you who believe, wine and all the other things that were mentioned along with it, gambling and all that, they are filth from amongst the actions of shaitan, so stay away from them now. Right? Umar kept concurring with the truth in every single verse that was revealed. This man had an intuition because of his sincere desire to pursue the truth, that every single time he actually thought of something, when he concocted something in his brain, his intuition to the truth was so solid and so strong that Allah would agree with him all the time. Even if he sometimes disagreed with the Prophet ﷺ. Even if his opinion was not concurring, like for instance, the POWs of Badr, it was not concurring with the opinion of the Prophet ﷺ. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very, assertively, very, aggressively revealed verses in the favor of his opinion, because his pursuit for the truth was very sincere and he never beat around the bush. Umar bin Khattab was such a personality where the Prophet ﷺ culminated his praise by saying, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِينَا قَبْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأُمَمِ مُحَدَّثُونَ. Verily, there were very many people before you who were muhaddath. Muhaddath is not a person who narrates hadith, that's a muhaddith. Right? But muhaddath is a person who is inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without revelation. He just has an intuition. يَجْرِي عَلَى لِسَانِهِ الصِّدْقُ. A truth naturally flows on their tongue because he was a truthful person, an honest person who did not beat around the bush and did not constantly pat himself on the back. He did not constantly pat himself on the back, and that was one of the main reasons why his drastic change from becoming, from being once upon the greatest enemies of Islam to becoming one of the greatest supporters of Islam, that's why it was so drastic, and that's why it was so efficient, and that's why it was so truthful and so real, because it was genuine. Right? But he knew his personality was very rough, so he was rough on himself.
Like sometimes he would go and put his hand over the fire and try to feel the fire a little bit and tell himself, oh Umar, you can't even handle this. How are you going to handle the fire of Jahannam? Sometimes he would cry so much in his prayer that people couldn't even understand what he was reciting because that's how harshly and intensely he was weeping. You know, people would be able to conveniently come up to him and criticize him in the middle of his lectures. Like somebody, and he would be like, you're right. You know, sometimes he'd be walking around the streets as the Khalifa, right, at the caliph of 1/3 of the known world at that time, and a woman would be able to come up to him and say that, Umar, I know a time when you were just a little Umayyad. Umayyad is basically a nickname for, which makes the name almost smaller, right? Umar, Umayyad. So it's just like, you know what, your little boy, baby boy, right? I knew when you were that, just grazing sheep. And he was like, yeah, that's true. And he would start crying. He was a harsh personality, but harsh to himself. But when it came to the believers, dealing with other people, he was soft. He was soft. Just like that, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was a very soft individual when it came to his own personality. Little things inspired him. Little things made him do everything that he needed to do. He didn't need much, in terms of motivation and galvanization through sermons and lectures. And no, all the Prophet needed to do was just indicate, and Abu Bakr would have it done. He didn't need much. But when it came to implementing the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he knew his personality was soft, he was a little extra strong. Right? To a point where one time him and Umar got into a little bit of a discussion in terms of how to deal with like a new branch of renegades that just came about. And they refused to pay zakat. They're like, we want to become Muslims, but we don't want to accept this branch of your faith of paying zakat. Umar said, just, be soft towards them, Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr, despite his soft personality, said, oh Umar, أَجَبَّارٌ فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ وَخَوَارٌ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ? Are you going to be a very powerful, mighty, aggressive individual before Islam and a coward in Islam? I will go ahead and implement it, even if I have to give my life for it. Abu Bakr knew, I'm a soft guy, but if I use my softness to implement it on other people, it would be walked all over. So if we look for different personalities, different precedents, why the Sahaba were such a successful group of people is because they knew who they were and they acted accordingly. They knew what worked with them and they acted accordingly. But they could be who was somebody who feared hypocrisy so much, which is why the Prophet entrusted him with the list of the hypocrites. Because he feared it so much that, you know what, the Prophet said this man will never probably be amongst them. Because he actually fears it so much, he's paranoid of it so much. And that's why he used to say that a lot of people would ask the Prophet ﷺ about good things, about Jannah, about the rewards of the hereafter, but I always used to ask him for the bad things, because I wanted to stay away from it. He knew his personality. I needed to know more about Jahannam. A lot of you have different personalities. If I ask you what's your favorite verse in the Quran, or favorite surah in the Quran, I'll get different answers. Some of you will say Surah Al-Rahman because it reminds you of the mercy of Allah and the bounties of Allah and all of those things. And some of you will say Surah Munafiqun, Surah Qaf, or like a surah which has punishment elucidated in it. Right? Because that motivates you to stay away from these things. So we need to identify what kind of individual we are. What works for us. Look for precedent in the lifetime of the Prophet or the Sahaba. Look for somebody who you can easily, be like, hey, this guy's personality matches mine. If I'm wealthy, this person was wealthy, how did he conduct himself? If I'm poor, this person was poor, how did he conduct himself? How can I work with that? How can I take his life and his model in terms of qualities, in terms of traits that he developed, not that he had, and how can I run with those and implement them in my own life? And all of these things, once we learn to do that, and our sincerity in pursuit of the truth is something that Allah accepts, Allah will not leave us unguided. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely guide us to the straight path, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely bring about change, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't leave us in the dark. Allah will not leave us out, just looking for guidance and just being lost and withered away from any form of guidance whatsoever. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
give me and all of us the ability to learn from this. And obviously, I mean, although the majority of the discussion was focused on Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, inshallah we'll actually do a program about him. Read his seerah. Read his seerah, learn about his seerah however you possibly can. It's one of the most fascinating seerahs ever. Umar radiallahu anhu's tazkiyah, his path of self-reformation, was something that we can all benefit from. It's universal, even though he was a harsh man to himself and soft to other people, but it's something that we can all use and all benefit from. Like Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says very beautifully, she says, إِذَا شِئْتُمْ أَن تُطِيبُوا الْمَجْلِسِ فَابْدَأُوا بِذِكْرِ ابْنِ الْخَطَّابِ. If you ever want to illuminate or make your gathering more interesting, more fascinating, and more just filled with energetic vibes, then start talking about the child of Khattab, Umar radiallahu anhu. So inshallah, let's all try to learn his life, try to take some benefit from whatever it is that he's done to better himself, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us the ability to actually have a sincere desire to implement the truth and preach it to others and promote it to others. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.